All right, so welcome to part one of my solo legend final shape campaign on Hunter. In this series, it's going to be 8 parts, and the footage that I have is it only includes the encounters. Okay, so there's going to be 8 videos. This first video, I'm just going to be discussing the build that I used for the entire campaign. I basically didn't switch anything. So the reason that I'm only including the encounters for the actual gameplay footage is because a lot of the we don't need all the cutscenes and traversal sections out of each mission to really to get the point across that this is a build that you can use to effectively complete the campaign solo on Legend difficulty, right? The traversal areas and the cutscenes don't really mean much as far as survivability. Obviously, if you die in any extinguish encounter, then it doesn't really matter. You can just respawn right away and you don't lose any progress, right? So the real factor that you need to consider a build for and everything is for the encounters where you have a rally flag. You put down your flag and the encounter starts and you see the respawn restricted zone, right? So if you fall in that zone without completing it, you will have to restart the entire counter. So that basically means that each mission is showing you the solo flawless gameplay, because obviously if you do not complete an encounter flawless, then you don't complete the encounter, right? You can't die. So that's kind of the idea there. Originally, I was going to do the series in a bit of a different format. I was going to have like commentary on all of the gameplay, but I put out this poll a couple weeks ago to see what kind of videos you guys would want to see next. I had a lot of Titan footage in the Pale Heart. I've got, and then I just recently did my Titan or my Hunter campaign, so I had all that footage and I was planning to do some stuff with that, but then I've also got some fire and ice builds that I've been using to put together on Hunter that I want to show you guys as well. And now of course I've already moved on to other ideas that I want to put forward, so I can't do being the hobbyist YouTube content creator that I am, I can't do all of the things that I want to do as far as making videos exactly the way that I originally envisioned them, right? So this is the only part of the playlist of this series that is going to have commentary, which is me covering the build and just explaining the series and why it works the way it works, or why I'm showing it the way I'm showing it. Everything else is just going to be live gameplay or unedited gameplay of every encounter, right? So just the solo flawless gameplay that matters, that shows the builds. Yep, so that's pretty much it. So for the build, I just decided to go with Nightstalker, and I wanted to get the campaign done as fast as I could. Ideally, you can probably finish the campaign in a couple hours on Legend, even maybe 3 hours with all the cutscenes and traversal sections. But as far as all the gameplay that I have, it's about 2 hours of gameplay. And that's all of the important encounters. So if you can complete them all successfully and be as fast as possible, skip all the cutscenes, zoom through the traversal sections with an eager edge sword, then you can probably get it all done in 2-3 hours. I think that's probably realistic. So I just decided to go with an old-fashioned core meta build for Hunter, which is Gerfalcon's Hauberk. I have probably 5-6 videos, if not more, on Nightstalker on my channel covering Gerfalcon's Hauberk from its original introduction into the game back in, what was it, Season of Plunder, right? So and it's gone through quite a few changes. Like, it originally didn't come out with volatile rounds. Now it's just automatic. Stylish Executioner, volatile rounds, they work hand in hand. So every time you kill a void debuff target with your Falcons, you go invisible. And at the same time, if you're combining that with Repulsor Brace, it works in the same fashion as Stylish Executioner, so that when you kill a void debuff target, you will get a void overshield, right? So this is kind of the backbone gameplay synergy with Nightstalker on your Falcons, is you got to have Stylish Executioner, right? And then you've got to have that gives you your volatile rounds, it makes you invisible, it gives you an overshield, and your survivability is very good. On top of that, we can take advantage of Devour to its maximum potential with Echo of Starvation. So every time we pick up an Orb of Power or a Void Breach, the only way we're getting Void Breaches is from the seasonal artifact. I think if you kill kill enemies with Void or weakened targets, you occasionally spawn a Breach, which feeds into your dodge energy, which is decent, but it can also give you some extra means to getting Devour. Then Echo of Persistence is going to increase our Devour timer by 50%, which is quite important because all of your kills are going to heal you to about half HP, right? You're also going to be going invis, you're going to be getting those overshields, but I mean, Devour is your only actual healing source, right? It's not just like an overshield that gives you a temporary, basically temporary DR until your overshield is gone. Devour is your actual, constant healing effect, and it gives you grenade energy, which is kind of nice as well. So if you only have 5 seconds of Devour, and if you can't get a kill within that time, then you lose your Devour. You have to pick up another orb or find another way to get your Devour chain going, because obviously once you have Devour, then you just need to keep killing things to keep the timer going. It refreshes on kill. Right, so Echo of Persistence gives you enough flexibility that you can have, I think, 10 seconds of Devour. And they changed something about Devour. I think it was with the introduction of the final shape, where now, kind of like Empyrean, like you get different measures, or you get different time extensions on Devour based on the amount of enemies you killed and possibly the types of enemies you've killed, up to I think a maximum of 15 seconds. So this is quite a rework on the Devour chaining timer, but I can assure you that Persistence and Starvation are still very valuable fragments to pair together to just make sure that you've always got Devour. Then Echo of Undermining, so that we can always have that Void debuff on, basically the best Vortex grenade in the game, or the best Void grenade in the game, which is Vortex Nades. Just to trap a lot of enemies, kill enemies quick, debuff bosses and big targets. So yeah, the negative 20 discipline stat is well worth it, especially if you can make up for it in your armor stats, like what I'm doing here with double 100s, and not suffering with any of my other stats below tier 3, right? And I'll talk more about the stats in a second, but Echo of Obscurity is kind of the flexible fragment here. If you're not doing a lot of finishers, you can definitely swap this out for something else like Magnitude to increase the duration of your Vortex grenades by 50%, or you can produce Void Breaches from killing volatile targets. I just don't find that the breaches are all that necessary. The breaches they give you Devour, sure, but you're always producing an Orb of Power at basically the same rate as breaches anyways, so they're not really that helpful for Devour, but they are helpful to get your dodge back. So if you have bad mobility, or if you really want to play into Gambler's Dodge, or just dodge more frequently, then yeah, you can pick up breaches, but your class ability is already on a very fast cooldown, 29 seconds, and if you can build up to tier 100 mobility, you can get, I think, 17 seconds on your cooldown, which is like, your dodge is already back before you even know it. So, but yeah, I went with Echo of Obscurity here just for an extra means of going invis, right? So if I can't get a kill to proc Stylish Executioner, well, I could always just, clutch on getting a finisher and then escaping, right? So this is just kind of more of a safety net, right? If I'm in a bad situation and I'm critical on health and I'm not sure if I can kill something to get an overshield and to get a chunk of healing from Devour, and to go invis, then I can just do the finisher, right? So that's the concept there. And then Vanishing Step is just the easiest, quickest way to go invis to start your whole gameplay loop, right? Because obviously you need to be invisible first to get those volatile rounds to start that kind of gameplay loop. So I find that Vanishing Step is just more reliable than Trapper's Ambush. You could use Trapper's Ambush, but you've got a longer cooldown. It's based on your strength, your melee, and in that case you might want to go Gambler's Dodge with your Snare Bomb so you can get one back more frequently. The downside is, though, that you're not going to be, it's not necessarily downside, but I like Marksman's Dodge for Gerfalcon's Hauberk because the whole concept of the build is to keep the volatile rounds flowing. Basically, you want to keep shooting your weapons, keep applying volatile, and Marksman's Dodge, especially with a machine gun, and any weapon for that matter, is an automatic reload. So you're just going to keep the volatile rounds flowing more frequently like that. So that's basically that basically covers the subclass setup. And then as far as so on the note of Devour, where is my buried bloodline, by the way? Let me just pull that over. Now, I would have used buried bloodline more throughout the campaign. I think I used it on the first mission because, well, actually, let me tell you, I only started capturing the footage for the campaign when I got to the first encounter that was somewhat challenging, which was in the second mission, and so I didn't capture any footage from the first mission. I went back after the fact and recorded it, and by that time I had gotten the catalyst for buried bloodline because it was something that I'd been postponing, so I just picked up the catalyst like this week, and so I finally put it to use in the first mission. But that's why you don't see it again after that. It's because I didn't have the catalyst, so I just didn't really want to use it very much. But let me tell you, this thing is absolutely cracked. And on the note of Devour, which is why I wanted to talk about this after talking about Devour from the subclass, buried bloodline gives you the immediate maximum Devour timer, right? I think you get 4 ad kills with buried bloodline, and then you've automatically got Devour for 15 seconds. There's no build up. There's no I'm pretty sure it's 15 seconds, but it's like the maximum timer automatically. And obviously, if you're not using persistence, then it would be like 10 seconds, right? Because persistence increases your timer by 50%. So Echo of Persistence with buried bloodline is just going to give you that 15 seconds of Devour right off the bat. So it's absolutely insane, and it's a rocket sidearm, and it does precision-based damage as well, which I don't think the other rocket sidearms do. Which is unique to buried bloodline. So not only is it doing similar or better damage as all the other rocket sidearms, but it can do precision damage, which can proc certain things on other builds. Makes it better for, well, obviously precision damage, but also just can give you Devour without the help of anything else, really, and then applies Weaken while Devour is active. So absolutely one of the best exotics in the game by far. As far as the other weapons here, look, this is the entire arsenal that I brought into the campaign. I didn't use anything else. In fact, this setup right here that I have, Witherhoard with the Recluse from Onslaught and Commemoration, was basically my bread and butter weapon loadout for almost every encounter, and I basically only switched it up just to kind of keep things fresh, but I mean, everything works basically the same. So Witherhoard is, my damage over time, always very good, and then Recluse from Onslaught, this one I got with Repulsor Brace and Frenzy, which is one I was farming for this build specifically. So you've got a maximum reload speed, 15% extra damage, plus you've got your overshield from your volatile rounds and Stylish Executioner. And then for this Commemoration, this is my Gerfalcon's Commemoration, so it's not my Reconstruction Killing Tally version. This is my Repulsor Brace and Dragonfly. And the reason I'm not bothered about having something like Reconstruction on here is because I would rather have Repulsor Brace for the Overshield and the survivability, but also because I know that I'm rocking Marksman's Dodge on Hunters, so I never have to reload this thing anyways, because by the time I've shot enough bullets to need to reload, I've got my 17-second cooldown on my dodge back, right? And on the note of mobility, I said I was going to go over the stats. You'll notice here that I have 50 mobility. Well, this is actually tier 100 mobility as long as you have a lightweight frame weapon on your loadout somewhere. It doesn't matter if you have it out in the moment, as long as it's equipped, you will have an extra free 50 mobility, right? Lightweight frame, superb handling, move faster with this weapon equipped, but what it doesn't tell you is that it gives you 50 mobility stats. So it's kind of weird that it doesn't tell you, but if you go onto DIM or Light GG, you'll see that it does. And I tested this in game. I took a lightweight frame off, and my cooldown was 5 seconds longer, so I'd have to wait 22 seconds at tier 5 mobility for my dodge without a lightweight weapon, and with a lightweight weapon it was 17 seconds. So I mean, yeah, so never mind your mobility stats. If you can get to at least tier 5, then you can have tier 10. So really this is a triple 100s build, and I have lots of options. So if I want to run Le Monarch for doing range damage, or say there's a lot of what are they, dregs, or the the pterodactyls, whatever they are. Then I might be using the monarch, in which case I can equip Lingering Dread, which is a lightweight grenade launcher that can also apply slow and blind enemies, so it's very good. So the alternate loadout here would be, that I used most of the time, would have been Lingering Dread with the monarch, and then a machine gun. So as far as my other weapons here, I'll just go by slot. Kvostov I just tested in the second to last mission for one of the encounters just for fun. It's got shoot to loot, so I was thinking, okay, well, I could pick up Devour every now and then. And if I run it with a add clear void weapon, like a special like Harsh Language, then I can still proc my invis and my repulse, my overshield with Harsh Language. Right, this is basically... Harsh Language on Gerfalcon's Hauberk is Forbearance with Chain Reaction, but in void. Because every single waveframe shot is just going to turn into a chain reaction because of volatile rounds. So I don't see a lot of people using this in this way, but it is literally like a forbearance level add clear machine on Gerfalcon specifically. And so then you could pair it with an exotic primary weapon like Kvostov. So it's okay. But it wasn't really a focus for the campaign. I just tested it out for fun. And then Midnight Q was to pair with Buried Bloodline. Right, that way I just kind of have a primary to go with my special, but honestly you could rock double special if you want, just maybe put on a special finisher mod instead of like bomber here, and then use your armor charge to get some finishers every now and then. I mean, you're getting finishers to go in Viz anyways, it doesn't hurt if you just want to produce enough special ammo to rock special ammo the entire time, but I find you get more special and heavy drops if you're running a primary and special setup, right? So that was what I used to pair with Buried Bloodline, plus it's got Firefly and Frenzy, so it is pretty useful, although you'll hardly see me ever use it. And then Mountaintop is just a good alternative DPS weapon, right? So whereas like if I can't afford to use Witherhoard because I'm using like Le Monarch as my exotic instead of Witherhoard, then I can use Mountaintop as the alternative, and I can just do some pretty good DPS. It's got Demo, which synergizes with Indomitability for more grenade energy, to work with Devour, to work with my Vortex grenade. It's an automatic reload if I want, right? Just by throwing my grenade. But Frenzy is going to give me the max reload, which means that I can do the the most amount of DPS with this Mountaintop, because as far as sustained DPS, right, burst DPS, you're talking recombination, it's just one shot and done. But this is like if you want to just delete a boss real quick and you don't want to use your machine gun on the boss, you can just use Mountaintop, right? Frenzy's 15% extra damage plus 100 reload is, that's a pretty significant amount of DPS just from avoiding a slow reload. So for the energy slot here, of course, everything is working with Void subclass, with the exception of Le Monarch. Le Monarch's not feeding into Repulsor Brace, obviously, and it's not giving us Devour and Weaken like Buried Bloodline, but it does have Unrelenting, right? And so in my opinion, it's still the best ranged option for Void. Even on Gerfalcon's Hauberk, the poison damage over time is going to proc volatile rounds. Plus it's good for survivability because you're applying overload, and then it's good for flying targets, obviously, like I said, the pterodactyls or whatever they're called, right? And then Recluse, as I already covered, it's a lightweight, so this works perfectly for my max mobility and dodge energy, and playing into this very good weapon. I mean, it's just a funnel web that's even better, because the problem with funnel web is, as good as it was at 900 RPMs and basically the exact same weapon, it did not have Repulsor Brace or specifically that Void synergy. Harsh Language, as I already covered, it's basically Void Forbearance for this build, and Buried Bloodline I also covered. So then we've got, like I said, Commemoration. This is my main workhorse. The other half, you're not going to see me use here, but this is what I used in between every encounter, every extinguishable encounter, just to get around fast and complete the campaign as quickly as possible. Then occasionally I'll use Retrofit Escapade for doing, like, if I know that there's going to be a boss that needs to be taken down, and maybe I'm not using Mountaintop, and so maybe I just want to, melt some bosses a lot quicker than using commemoration. Commemoration is more for ad clear, and it's decent at doing it's decent at boss damage, popping tormentor shoulders, but ultimately retrofit escapade is going to melt bosses a lot quicker, right? I'm just using it less for ad clear. So if I am using something like retrofit, then I might rely more on Wither Horde or like the Monarch and Lingering Dread, first as far as my ad clear and crowd control goes. Then Doom Petitioner, I only use this in the first mission just to test it out on the Subjugator. It's pretty easy to proc surrounded, so this thing does a lot of damage. Any linear fusion rifle, especially a burst linear like Briar's Contempt and Storm Chaser, although with Storm Chaser we don't have surrounded, but those frames of linears with surrounded is just absolutely nuts. It's like 47% extra damage, so, and you never have to reload. So yeah, definitely melted that first encounter, the first level, first mission, the last encounter of the first mission where you got the Subjugator. Yeah, it melts it very quickly. Then I've got Falling Guillotine, which I decided to just mess around with as well. This is the God Roll, Frenzy and Surrounded. It's the God Roll as far as doing the most amount of damage possible for this weapon. I think Wolfpack rounds actually with Ergo Sum, there's some nuances there where like Relentless Strikes and Whirlwind Blade is actually better with Wolfpack rounds, but if you're just looking at this sword by itself, this is the highest damage double perk setup that you can get for it, right? It's a little conditional. You have to be surrounded, you have to get Frenzy proc, but if you can get them both going at the same time, it's pretty much the highest damage sword in the game, at least as far as legendary. Then Edge Transit, I wanted to use this in the second to last mission. What is it? Descent, where you fight the Scorn boss, and you got to take care of the subjugators. I just thought this was a perfect opportunity to use it as long as I can avoid killing myself. Envious Bait and Switch, which is kind of the god roll for Edge Transit as well. Generally speaking, you also got Cascade, which I've got a roll of that as well, but that's just kind of like a niche DPS scenario where you're doing a damage rotation with a precision-based weapon like a sniper rifle, and then swapping over to Bait and Switch to just do maximum amount of DPS, right? But I only used it one time. And then I tested out Deterministic Chaos as well, because this got some changes. Right now it's got intrinsic anti-barrier, which is kind of cool, and I think they made it so that I think it procs volatile quicker than weaken now. So it's kind of obsolete on Gerfalcon's Hauberk anyways, because you've already got volatile rounds on Gerfalcons, but it does apply weaken, and it's got automatic anti-barrier rounds. So even if you don't have the volatile rounds procced from Gerfalcons, you could pierce shields, I suppose, but definitely it's still not as applicable as the other stuff here like Commemoration or even Retrofit Escapade. I would say just avoid using it. There's way better alternatives for Void Heavies in the Legendary format, and then that gives you the freedom to use stuff like Wither Horde, Le Monarch, and Buried Bloodline. But those would be the three most important exotics here. Like I said, I only tested Kvostov out briefly. So that's the loadout setup as far as the weapons, and these are the combat mods that I basically didn't switch just to make my weapons feel good. Targeting, dexterity, reload. Obviously, we're going to produce Orbs of Power from Siphon and get that Devour chain going, and then resistance just because it fits in there. But if you want, you can switch out Concussive and Void for if you're up against a lot of solar and arc damage, then you've got 4 energy slots available here between these 2 slots, so you can put in like double solar or solar and arc. You could switch this up to, as you see fit, but generally speaking I didn't need to at all. Concussive Dampener is just good all around, and then Harmonic Resistance just fits into the build with 1 energy cost. You've got Overshields, you've got Devour, you've got Invis. So you've got 100 resilience, so there's just really not it's not critical that you're min-maxing all of your DR from different elements for then you have to scratch your head in every single mission of what type of damage you're taking. Just don't even bother, just run a build that's survivable to begin with, and Concussive should carry you through it, right? And then obviously we want more ammo for our machine gun, and the holster is just kind of nice, right? I don't have to always have to spend a marksman's dodge to reload my machine gun. It's just kind of like reconstruction going in the background, reloading my void weapons, so it's kind of nice. Powerful attraction to scoop up orbs of power that are nearby. And then every time we dodge, we get a kill, we make another orb from Reaper, so very good synergy there with the fast dodge cooldown. And Bomber just to give us a little bit more grenade energy. On top of that, the main function of our armor charge here is actually kickstart, right? We've got 100 discipline, we've got the best grenades in the game, we've got Devour going to give us grenade energy, like I said, Bomber. So we may as well just, spam more grenades, right? Use the armor charge to our advantage. With stacks on stacks and charged up, we can get 4 stacks of armor charge to then throw our grenade. And when we do so, we get 37%, I want to say. It's almost half of your grenade energy back, right? So I mean that's pretty darn good. And then Devour and Bomber and all that stuff is just going to do the rest of the work to get your grenade back very fast. So definitely makes a difference there. And then the seasonal artifact wasn't a huge factor, but you may as well, if you've got access to these, use Expanding Abyss and Void Hegemony just for some extra damage and to get those Void Breaches as well. Is it Breaches that you get? You get Breaches somewhere. I can't remember what. There's a oh, it's this one right here. Okay, so yeah, take off the sword. There you go. Rapid final blows with a kinetic weapon or a weapon matching your equipped super creates a pickup, right? So this will give you some void breaches every now and then you'll get an overshield every now and then for defeating weakened targets, and you're going to do extra damage with void weapons to those weakened targets, right? That's the main thing there. And then other major factor about Recluse here, even though volatile rounds already give us an anti-barrier, it's shield piercing rounds. Well, it's nice to have Recluse just pierce shields whether I have volatile rounds or not. So, SMGs are going to be very good for this season, at least for this act. I think it's going to remain the same for Act 2. But yeah, SMGs being anti-barrier weapons, good for any situation, whether there's champions or not. But yeah, that's basically it. So, yep, so the gameplay will be next. There'll be 7 different parts in the playlist there, going in order, encounters only. So hope you enjoy, and I will see you in the next one.